Can you run only Windows on a Mac? I'm aware of plenty of options like Boot Camp and Parallels that allow you to run Windows on a Mac, but can you remove OS X and run only Windows on new Mac Intel-based hardware?
Yes, you can have only Windows installed, but there are some other things to be aware of. Leopard and Snow Leopard. To have full hardware support, you will need a copy of OS X Leopard or preferably Snow Leopard, since Snow Leopard has a newer version of the Boot Camp drivers and device software. When you are booted into Windows and insert the OS X disk, you'll be prompted to install the Boot Camp drivers and utilities. These Boot Camp drivers are used for things like the Apple keyboards, trackpads, mice, special function keys for brightness, etc. to function in Windows. You can download a version of the Boot Camp drivers from Apple's website, but it is only an update and doesn't include the full suite of drivers and device software. Since the full Boot Camp software is on the OS X disk, you will need a copy of the OS X on hand, but you don't have to keep OS X installed. Lion and Mountain Lion. Since there is no longer any retail disk, Boot Camp drivers can be downloaded in OS X by running the Boot Camp Assistant utility in Applications, Utilities, Boot Camp Assistant. This does mean you will need an installation of OS X at least while you download the drivers and then burn them to disk or copy them to a USB drive. Firmware notes. If you are installing Windows on an older Mac, you might need a temporary installation of OS X to update the FE firmware to allow BIOS emulation, which is needed to boot Windows. If you do need to update the firmware, you can wipe off OS X after it is updated. Some newer versions of Windows, such as Vista SP1 and 7, have a FE boot mode, but Microsoft's FE boot code is not compatible with Apple's FE. This effectively means BIOS emulation is necessary to boot Windows. However, this BIOS compatibility is in the computer's firmware and does not require an OS X installation in order to function. Also, you can safely format the hard drive as MBR only if you want only Windows and/or Linux installed. If you're also running OS X along with Windows, you would want to be using a GPT/MBR hybrid partition format.
Yes. I've done it myself. I've wiped Snow Leopard in favor of Windows 7, as I found myself booting into Windows frequently and my need for Mac software became less important. I won't question your reasons, that's not the point. If you insert the Windows disk and hold down Alt on startup, the Windows install will kick in. As previously mentioned, if you want to install Windows 7, the latest Boot Camp drivers are required. These are A.exe found on the Snow Leopard disk or torrent and will make your touchpad, sound, etc. work well in Win 7. Take it from me, I'm writing this answer using my MacBook White 13 inches with Win 7 Ultimate, and it works like a charm.
Short and fat. Boot up with original Mac OS X DVD. When installation of OS X starts, you will have the menu available. Go to Disk Utilities, delete all partitions to 1 or 2 drives as you prefer, 2 drives if you want a C and D drive. Partition the drives to FAT. Otherwise, the Windows installation can't find a valid installation drive. Stop the OS X installation. Switch DVD to Windows Install DVD. This can be tricky. Upon reboot, hold down Eject key, switch DVD and force close with power button. Upon reboot, hold down Alt key, select Windows CD. Start the installation. Select which drive to install to. If using a Windows 7 upgrade CD, do not type in the activation key at this point. When Windows is running, several reboots switch to Mac DVD. In Windows environment, go to Boot Camp folder. Install Boot Camp using the Boot Camp setup file. After reboot, insert Windows 7 DVD and start installation again. This installation will be considered as an upgrade, and you can now use your activation key. 2-finger scroll works just fine. The keyboard layout is exactly as you see. The downside is, if you are used to normal PC, no page up and page down, print screen or pause break buttons. Benefit: run/performs even better than OS X. Don't know if this works with Windows XP. Don't know if all your other Mac hardware works, Apple TV, Mac mini server. All internal hardware in your Mac performs just fine.
You can just install Windows, either from using the Boot Camp Assistant, Apps, Utilities, Boot Camp, or simply by holding down Option, Alt, or C for CD boot on the keyboard during boot up with the Windows disk in. Once the Windows installation process starts, choose Custom, delete all partitions, choose New for the Windows partition and click Next. Voila! It's that easy. No need to run disk utility. You can edit the partitions from the custom Windows install. I was worried if you only had the Windows partition that it might not boot up, but this isn't the case. It works great with just the Windows partition and the Windows system allocated space. Windows 7 runs amazing on my Mac Mini 2.1. After installing Windows, ensure to put the Mac OS X install disk in, as this will install all the necessary Windows drivers, video card, trackpad, etc., for it run at its max potential. If you do not have the Mac OS X disk, no worries. You can del the drivers from the Boot Camp Assistant, Go, Utilities, Boot Camp, or from the Apple website.